Hey guys, welcome to a new episode of This Week in BJJ. Today is July 22nd, 2015. I'm Budo Jake, and on today's episode, we're going to talk about two upcoming tournaments, EBI 4 and the 5 Grappling Super League. We're also going to have an interview with Keith Owen. He's also going to show us some really cool techniques. And we also have a lot of viewer questions today. So let's get to it. Okay guys, before we get to the news, gotta thank our sponsor, ColliCure. And we're pretty particular about the sponsors that we take on This Week in BJJ, and ColliCure is a brand that we really believe in. It is the only way to effectively fix a damaged ear due to abrasion or getting hit. Cauliflower ear is not a good look for a lot of people. Some people like it. I don't. And this is the only way you can actually take care of it at home. So what you do is you drain your ear, then you use the ColliCure product, which is magnets covered with silicone to keep your skin pressed against the cartilage. You keep it on for about 3 days, and then back to normal. So it's a really cool product. Check it out on BudoVideos.com. ColliCure is just under $100. Okay, we've got two tournaments to talk about today. There's two great events happening in the first half of August. The first one on August 2nd is the 5 Grappling Super League. This thing is going to be huge. It's going to be hosted at Studio 540 in San Diego. There's an 8-man division, an 8-woman division, and 2 super fights. In the men's, we got Spriggs, Lombard, Simoes, Bastos, Assis, Popolo, Rocha, and Marte. The women's 8-woman division is Dern, Borges, Easton, Musumeshi, Leah, Antunes, Montero, and Dietrich. So, man, they got a really good lineup for that event. The 2 super fights, Keenan Cornelius versus Otavio Souza, and Joao Miao versus Gary Tonin. If you can make it live, there's going to be a very small number of seats available at Studio 540. Those are going for $300 each. And then there's also going to be a party outside. Those tickets are only $20 at Studio 540. You can get that information on 5 Grappling's website, 5grappling.com. There's also going to be a pay-per-view hosted on 5 Grappling's website as well. Again, that's going to be on August 2nd. And we're going to be handling the production of it, so you know it's going to be solid. I can't wait. The next big event happening in the first half of August is Eddie Bravo's EBI 4. EBI 3 is totally free to watch on YouTube right now, so if you haven't seen it, I don't know what you're waiting for. It was an incredible event. It's the only event where you're pretty much guaranteed a submission in every single match. EBI 3 was super exciting, and I can't wait for the 4th one. And I don't say that lightly. That tournament was amazing. The next event, EBI 4, has a lot of new guys, which is kind of cool to give these new up-and-comers a chance, with also some big-name guys mixed in there as well. We got Gio Martinez, who's a 10th Planet Black Belt, Joel Tudor, Joao Miao, Eddie Cummings, Barry Yoshida, and a bunch of other guys. This is going to be a really cool event. Again, that's going to be on August 15th. The live pay-per-view is going to be on Budo Videos, and you can also see it live in downtown LA at the Orpheum Theater. Okay, guys, now we're going to have a lot of viewer questions. I asked a bunch of questions, asked for questions on Instagram. If you're not following me, why not? Follow me, Budo Jake, on Instagram. And that's a good place to go if you have any questions that you want me to address on the show. I threw the question out there yesterday if anybody had any questions, and we got a lot of them, so I'm just going to run through here real quick. We got a lot of really good questions. First of all, Jitscripts asks, were there any black belt medalists from the 2015 World Championships that did not train full-time and or run or work at an academy? In other words, did any black belt medalist have a normal job? If not, what was the last year where a black belt medalist didn't train full-time or work at an academy? That would take quite a bit of research to actually research that completely, but that's a great question. And instead of looking at all the medalists, because again, that would take a while, let's just look at the first place winners for 2015. In the Roosterweight division, Bruno Malfacini, obviously a full-time athlete. Paulo Miao in the light feather, full-time athlete. Rafa Mendes, again, has his own academy, trains full-time. Michael Langhi, same thing. Claudio Calasanz as well. Leandro Lowe. Shanji Hibero obviously has his own academy. Bernardo Faria trains full-time. Gabriel Lucas trains full-time in Brazil. and Bernardo Faria again in the open class. So yeah, of course, all of the black belt gold medalists train full-time. Many of them have their own academies. What would be interesting is to go down the line. Let's look at the brown belts. Let's look at the purple belts. Let's look at the blue belts. I would guess that many of the gold medalists, regardless of belt color, train full-time or teach full-time. So yeah, if you are not training full-time, your chances of winning the world championships statistically is very, very low. Great question. Next, Day by Day Jiu-Jitsu asks, what are your thoughts on the new rule for the 50-point qualification for the black belt division in the Worlds? Some practitioners train every day but don't have the money, or geographically they can't get to the tournaments. So what Day by Day Jiu-Jitsu is talking about is this year is the first year that IBJJF instituted a 50-point rule where you have to have 50 points to be able to compete at the adult black belt level at the World Championships. And it's funny because I've seen a lot of criticism of that. People are like, hey, you know, IBJJF is just trying to get us to go around to a lot of their tournaments to compete, and it's hard and it's expensive. But before this rule was instituted, I saw a lot of criticism of people saying, man, it's a World Championships. Why can people just walk off the street and compete? You should have to qualify for it. That's how many other World Championships are. So, you know, there's both sides to the story. But as you've seen, the attendance at Jiu-Jitsu World Championships has grown larger and larger each year. And at this rate, it's going to be a week-long event. And that's a little difficult to do. So I think having these qualification rules in effect makes a lot of sense. So, you know, if you want to do other tournaments that don't have that rule, there's certainly other options. But for the IBJJF World Championships, I think it's cool to qualify. Let's see, RNZCO asks, what made you fall in love with Jiu-Jitsu? Well, I've loved martial arts my whole life, but the thing that I really liked about Jiu-Jitsu is the freedom. You know, you're not copying other people. Your instructor shows you moves, but if you think you have a better way to do it, you can try it out. It's like, like your own laboratory. You can check it, try it out. If the move doesn't work, you do something else. But I really like the freedom of expression that Jiu-Jitsu gives. What's your favorite gi to roll in? That would be a shoyu roll. I think they're super comfortable. I think they look good, and the size fits me perfectly. The A1L is the perfect size for me. I love being able to put it in hot water, put it in the dryer, and still have it fit perfectly for me. Mike Hofer asks, what are your two best tips to give a basics class instructor? Well, one of them comes to mind immediately, and that is to give not just show them how to do a move, but say how it relates to other moves. So any general points that can transcend all techniques, I think, is really helpful. Lance Owings asks, I'm a BJJ nomad. My homeschool closed a while ago, and I travel a lot for work. So I end up training at a lot of different schools. I train consistently 2 or 3 times a week, but never at the same place for very long. I love jiu-jitsu as a hobby, but I'm worried I won't be able to get promoted. I've been a 4-stripe blue belt for years now and concerned I'll never reach my goal. Yeah, that's a good question, Lance. I know a number of people are in that same situation. And what I would say to you is that it's going to be tough to get promoted if you're always turning up at different places. Someone has to take responsibility for you. And if you were a Gracie Baja student, I would say talk to one of the higher ups and explain your situation. If you're going to different Gracie Baja schools all the time, maybe they could track your attendance that way. But if you're always traveling and going to different academies, it's going to be hard to get promoted. So I don't know if you belong to a particular affiliation, but if not, you might want to try to inquire and think about, who do you want to get promoted by in the future and make a relationship with them. Jake the Snake Ryan asks, what's the best advice you received from a professor on training, competing, or overall jiu-jitsu? That's a tough question, Jake. I've gotten so much advice over the years from so many different people, but the main thing that resonates with me is trying to keep jiu-jitsu fun, and that's one reason I've never opened an academy. I don't want it to feel like work. Jiu-jitsu for me is a way to stay in shape, stay healthy, and relieve stress, and so keeping it fun is super important for me. Chris Bennett asks, opinions on BJJ for self-defense and BJJ as a sport. This is kind of a hot topic. There's definitely people with very strong opinions on both sides of the board. But for my personal opinion, I train Jiu-Jitsu, again, for health, for fitness, for fun. For me, training for self-defense, it gets a little boring after a while. It certainly has its application. I do like putting on gloves and training on the ground with punches. I think that's super fun. But as far as standing up, practicing self-defense moves, for me, that's just something that I did a long time ago. And nowadays, I prefer devoting my time to, I guess, the more sport side of jiu-jitsu. If I have a super fight coming up, I like to compete, so that's kind of things takes up my time. Okay, a couple more here. Differences between judo and wrestling for BJJ. Which one's better for BJJ fighters? Well, for BJJ fighters, I would say judo because it relies more on the grips. If you're talking about MMA, then I would say wrestling would apply better. J. Esguera asks, what do you do when you feel as though you've hit a rut in your game? Well, I would suggest trying to analyze where you're running into problems and then look for an instructional on BudoVideos.com to help you out with that. So, if there's some problem, if you're getting your guard pass all the time, look for something on guard retention. If you can never finish an omoplata, look for an omoplata instructional. Okay, I don't want to make this take too long. Daniel asks, how long did it take you to get your black belt, and who was your main teacher? Took about 10 years, and my main teacher was Marcio Feitosa. I trained under Marcio Feitosa, Kyron Gracie, and Otavio Souza. Those were my main three instructors, but Marcio Feitosa was the longest. And EBI predictions or favorites. That's a tough one. My prediction is that the fans are going to win. It's going to be a super exciting event. But just looking at the list, probably the most medaled competitors there are going to be Joao Miao. Eddie Cummings, hasn't competed in a lot of big tournaments, but he's certainly been doing very well on the competition circuit lately. The question is, can Eddie take out Joao? I don't know. I don't believe I've ever seen Joao tap to a footlock. So it's going to be a tough fight, but I would say Joao Miao versus Eddie Cummings in the finals. It's my prediction. Okay, guys, thanks again for the questions. I'll be hitting you up for more questions on Instagram, so follow me there, and I'll be happy to address your questions anytime. Okay, one new product to talk about, guys, so let's talk about new products. Only one new product today, and that is Sandro Batata's Loop Choke. This was one that came out a while ago, but it's now available on demand. It was a 2-volume set before, so now it's 2 on demands, $14.99 for each volume. And when you think of the Loop Choke, Batata's the guy that comes to mind. He's a guy that I've fought a number of times. I consider him a friend, super talented guy, and he is dangerous with the Loop Choke. No one better to teach that move than him. So check it out, the Loop Choke by Batata. I think you're going to learn a lot on that instructional. Okay, now it's time for the interview with Keith Owen. Keith was in town, and so he stopped in. I've known Keith for a long time, but this is the first time we actually had a chance to sit down and talk. Talked about a lot of a wide range of topics, but he's a super cool guy. He has an academy in Boise, Idaho, trained under Pedro Sauer. So anyway, it was a lot of fun. So let's get to it, an interview with Keith Owen. Keith, thanks so much for coming in today.
Thanks, Jake.
We've talked a lot through email over the years, but this is the first time we've gotten together, so it's really nice.
I'm really excited. I appreciate you having me here.
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
So before we started filming, you commented that we have the exact same ring, and it turns out we had the same experience. We both spent some time in the emergency room. How did yours happen? Why are you wearing that ring?
Well, I wore my wedding ring. I've been married 23 years, and I love my wife, and I want to wear my wedding ring. And just training every day in jiu-jitsu, things are going to happen, especially your fingers. I don't need to tell you that. Especially your fingers get all whacked. And if you're a married guy, chances are you're going to get your ring finger busted because a lot of pressure gets put on that. And that's what happened to me, and it started swelling. And it's a gold band, obviously, and it starts swelling up. And I'm going to tell you this, I got pretty scared. I thought, oh man, I'm going to lose circulation in my finger. So I went to the hospital. I went to the emergency room, and I said, and it started hurting, and it turned white, and I was like, they're going to, we'll cut it off. And they got this thing, and they were just turning it and turning it and turning it, and finally my ring came off, and now I got to show my wife, hey, here's my wedding ring, and she wasn't very happy. And so for years, I just didn't wear a wedding ring. You know, and people go, hey, where's your wedding ring? How come, you know? And it's like, I'm a jiu-jitsu guy. I can't wear a wedding ring. And so finally, these bands came out, man, and I saw them, and one of my students came in with it and said, hey, look, you know, he goes, look at my band. I go, instantly I go, I got to have one of those. Yeah. You know, and I bought 3 or 4 of them now, you know, just different kinds.
Yeah, they're super cheap.
They're really inexpensive. You know, I don't Qualo, something like that. I don't know. But, and I hope I'm going to try to get it to catch on in jiu-jitsu, because I think it's a great idea for all jiu-jitsu guys, so they don't have to went through what we went through of having to go to the hospital.
Yeah, because, you know, when I was a white belt, blue belt, I had guys telling me, oh, Jake, you should take your ring off when you train. I thought, oh, you know, I've never had any problems. I didn't worry about it. But I've never sprained a finger except that one, and I sprained it during training, and I thought, oh, you know what, maybe tomorrow I'll get it looked at. And by the next day, it was all swollen and I couldn't get it off. My ring was titanium, so it took me 3 hours in the ER to get them turning that little can opener thing to get it cut off. So advice to all the guys out there that wear rings, don't wear them to train. If you do, wear these that are easy to get off, little silicone band. It's not a commercial for them, but it's just real advice from people who've been through it.
You've been through it, and you know, you might get a finger that looks like this one day on this finger, and I don't know, you're not going to be wearing a conventional ring, that's for sure.
Right. So Keith, you trained under someone who's about as legit as it comes, Pedro Sauer.
Yes.
Did you train with him just based on proximity? Were you living close to him, or did you search him out?
Well, Jake, when I started in jiu-jitsu, you know, Royce Gracie had just beat Dan Severn in the UFC, and I was watching that, and I said, oh my God, I got to do this. I was a black belt in stand-up martial arts, and I was, oh man, I got to do this jiu-jitsu. You know when you see something, you go, oh my gosh, that's my calling. That's what I need to do. And so I said, I'm in, and I went and I searched, and there was nobody. I don't even think the internet was around. You know, we were like, had fire and stuff to communicate and stuff, and I didn't know that where any instructors were. You know, there was Craig Kukuk and Henzo over in New York, and then there was the Gracie Academy, and then I looked around and I found Pedro Sauer in Salt Lake, and man, I was like, okay, I'll go to this guy, and oh, I'm so fortunate. If I could go to anybody in the world, it would be Professor Sauer. And you've been around a lot of jiu-jitsu guys, I have too, and quite frankly, Professor Sauer is the greatest jiu-jitsu instructor that I personally have ever met in my entire life. The guy is a magician, and he knows so much. He knows all the little tricks and details, and I've been fortunate enough to learn from him, and I'm going to pass it on and do honor to my professor, you know, because he literally, I think he's the Mozart of jiu-jitsu, and I'm very proud to be a student under him.
Right. Yeah, I remember when he was here, you know, he obviously knows a lot about jiu-jitsu, but he's great at conveying that across. And is a combination of a great teacher as well as practitioner. That's a rare combination.
I'm going to criticize my professor too, is that every time I see Professor, we call him Professor, he's Master Sauer, but you know, I call it, it's honorary, he's professor to me, that every time he shows something, it's so like, it's like a basic move that he shows. And boy, when he's in class with us, he's showing so many intricate little funky details that never come out in video magazines and stuff like that. And his knowledge base is so deep, and I just go, wow, he showed that. He could have showed so many others, but in his mind, he's helping the basic student to get those basic moves down, and he is so far from basic, but he takes those basic moves and has such miraculous details that no one will ever show you, and it just improves your game so much. So I'm saying it verbally out loud.
So he was in Salt Lake. Did you relocate to train with him?
I didn't relocate. I lived in Idaho, and I went down there a lot, and I lived down there for a good long time. I mean, but not permanently. It was in stretches of times. I would spend 1 or 2 weeks down there, and it was funny because I would be down there. I'd stay with my buddy for 2 weeks at a time, and I would just be training, and then I'd go back, and I'd have my school and everything like that, and guys would go, yeah, I didn't come to training. I live about a block away, and I haven't been here all week. And I'm like, you idiot, don't you even know what you have? One of the greatest instructors in the world, and you're like, can't even walk a freaking block to come to class. And you know, we drove 300 miles, to see Professor, and I did that for years and years and years. So,
you know, you mentioned back in the day when you started, and back then there were certainly less schools than there are now. Now there's schools in almost every city in the nation. Do you think students should go to the closest dojo?
Nope.
Or should they find the most qualified guy in the country and move and live with the guy and train there?
Yeah. Well, it depends on your job, of course. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. You should move wherever the greatest guy you can find is. But if there's don't just settle for someone who's a block away. You need to investigate schools, because not all jiu-jitsu guys are equal, as you've probably seen. Not they are, and just because they're close doesn't mean you're getting the best training. But then what happens is, I kind of think a lot of jiu-jitsu people start brainwashing their students about, you need to be here and be a member of our family, and they're not really getting the quality that they deserve or could get from somebody else. And if they would just search around in their city, even if they have to drive a little farther, I think quality is super important, because man, you get your black belt from this guy, and you want the best quality you can get. Now, that's all I would do. I mean, some guys want to go down the block and will take anybody. Okay, if it's the closest thing, that's what you want. But I would highly investigate jiu-jitsu schools where you fit in, where everybody is happy, right? A happy place that makes you happy and you're accepted, where they're not trying to kill you, not trying to beat up on you, where the instructor's honest, where he treats you like a human being. I think that's kind of an important thing.
Yeah, and I think jiu-jitsu has matured so much that there is a place for everybody. If you aren't interested in live rolling and you just want to practice self-defense, there's probably a place that does that.
Yes.
If you want to kill your teammates every day and get ready for the World Championships, there's a place for that too, and somewhere in between all those as well.
And you're not just going to find that down the block. If you want to be a world champion, you might not find that down the block. You want to go to Andre Galvao or somewhere where you can become that world champion. So searching around is great. Most people, I personally believe, start out in jiu-jitsu because they want to learn self-defense. Well, if that's the case, then you need to find a self-defense school that you are comfortable with, and then later on, if you want to do tournaments, you can make your decision then. But it really is the right fit for you. And people make the wrong decision, and then they get called a creante by people because they leave. Well, they found that they didn't like it there, and they have every right to leave.
Yeah. So Keith, on my show, we usually have world champions in, because those are kind of the biggest name guys. You're not a world champion, of course, but you are a fantastic instructor.
Thank you.
Do you think we and jiu-jitsu media in general put too much emphasis on world champions?
I do, but then what else do you do? I think for me personally, I wasn't expecting this question, and that's a good question. I have nothing against world champions, but I'm just going to tell you this. Most people, 99.9% of the people who do jiu-jitsu are never going to be a world champion and never make it to the highest levels of jiu-jitsu. And a lot of people like jiu-jitsu for self-defense and to learn the complete art, to be a complete jiu-jitsu guy. And I like both. See, I might be the wrong guy to ask, because I like tournament jiu-jitsu and I like self-defense as well. I'm not on the line, and I have no problem with either one. I have huge amounts of friends that are tournament jiu-jitsu guys. I just love jiu-jitsu, and I learn a lot, and a lot of the new techniques are coming from the tournament side guys, all right? And I have my criticisms of the self-defense guys. However, I think that a lot of the magazines now are slanted towards the tournament guys to promote that a lot more at the expense of the self-defense guys. And I really think that there is a rift between the two. That some people say, like magazines are trying to totally get rid of the self-defense side of jiu-jitsu and make it just a sporty tournament kind of deal. And I can see what they say there, but me personally, I just support the tournament side as well. And I personally like a lot of that, and but I think that it's just really cool to be a world champion, But at the same time, man, when world champions are winning by advantage points and there's no, clear decisive victory, I'm just not that as impressed. And so where I stand first and foremost is I am a self-defense guy, because if you've ever been punched in the face in a fight, on the ground, that the tournament side is different from the self-defense side, that there's a big difference there. And a lot of people don't understand, and I don't think it's even being promoted as much in the, tournament magazine world as much. And I know that I don't get as much publicity as, say, other people, and I'm okay with that. I mean, I have my niche, and my niche is self-defense first and tournament second, but I'm a tournament guy. And my school has gone to lots of tournaments. I mean, we were ranked high up there at Grappler's Quest for a long time. So we just don't compete as much anymore, but nothing wrong with that. And everybody should go and do a tournament. I mean, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
You could be, the reason is, this is why the self-defense guys need the tournament jiu-jitsu, is because you have to go test yourself. You need to go see how you're doing, because you can't just go start a street fight.
No. Well, you could.
Yeah, I guess you could. And, you know, you go to jail and pay restitution and all that. So you go to a tournament and you fight somebody across the way from you, and you see how you are at that moment. And I have students that are like 5-time Grappler's Quest champions. I mean, we do tournaments all the time, and I highly urge people to go do tournaments. Yeah. It's something they need to do.
Yeah, you'll learn about not only your technique skill set, but your mental set as well.
And having said that, the self-defense side, I think, because we do self-defense with knives. I mean, we'll take knives and start trying to stab each other on the ground with it in knife fight. We put the gloves on, and it more resembles an MMA kind of fighting style. So I see benefit in both myself personally, and I feel good because I can do all of those. Although people know me as a self-defense, stand-up, non-world champion guy.
Right. Yeah, I think training with gloves on the ground is a really interesting way. I started doing that about a year ago, and I think it's a really interesting way to balance between tournament and self-defense.
You'll see how your technique gets simplified as you get punched in the face.
For sure.
I assure you that the X guard and all of those things are a little more difficult to do when a guy can see your face and he punches you. So people need to experience that, and they go, okay, I see a need for the self-defense side of jiu-jitsu as well. And I think, quite frankly, I just practice both, and I feel pretty comfortable with that. So.
Right. Now, you mentioned that you had some criticisms of the self-defense. Is that just saying that they're not going to the tournaments to test themselves?
Yeah, I'm saying it. I'll just be straight up about it. My criticism of the self-defense guys is that, we do self-defense. Well, how do you challenge, you got to go get in fights and everything like that. I see that one of the things that I see, at least in the tournament side of it, is that, again, a lot of the advances in jiu-jitsu are happening on the tournament side of that, and I pick up a lot of good moves from that as well. I'm very into that. But the self-defense guys, I feel like if you don't watch out, it can get stagnant, because then they rely on tradition, and I don't know. I just don't think that's a good idea either. So I'm always pushing for innovation. That's what I want. Innovation all the time. If my guys want to do tournaments, great. If they don't, but they have to be able. They have to be able to grapple, and we're going to push it a little bit, and they have to be good at self-defense. And I think a lot of the self-defense schools just kind of get into a rut, and they don't really improve as much. And and I'm just saying it publicly. I mean, it needs to. So are there criticisms of the self-defense guys? You bet. I've got some criticisms of the tournament guys as well. And it's too bad that there's a rift there. I just kind of feel that a little bit, that. It's not jiu-jitsu as a whole. It's jiu-jitsu. I personally think, and I'm probably caused some controversy here, I don't feel that there's jiu-jitsu as a family unit of everybody. Jiu-jitsu, it's us and them, and I personally, in the Pedro Sauer Association, I don't see that a lot. We're open arms with everybody. If you come into our school, hey, welcome. You're a tournament guy, so we're just glad to have you here. If you beat up on us, great. If we beat up on you, great.
Right.
And we're just glad that you're training with us. And so I feel in the Pedro Sauer Association, we're very accepting of other schools, and I don't see that a lot,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I think about the various aspects of jiu-jitsu, I think of maybe the stand-up. And judo guys might say, man, most jiu-jitsu guys stand-up is terrible. There's so much they could learn. Mm-hmm. Then you got the self-defense guys saying, man, some of these sports guys, their self-defense is terrible. Then you got the sport guys saying the self-defense guys could be better on the ground. So there's almost 3 different facets of it. Mm-hmm. And if you got a typical student training 2 times a week, is it possible for them to get proficient at all 3 of those areas?
I say no, and that's why, as a self-defense guy, that's why I like that as a basic kind of deal, because I know that like I said, a lot of guys who come into my school are not going to be world champions necessarily. I mean, they're older dudes, and jiu-jitsu is made for older guys. We could talk about that too. Jiu-jitsu, I feel the technique is made for the older guys. Well, everybody's going to get old one day, and you need the technique. So working on the technique is the premier importance of that, right? And in the self-defense situation, they have a better chance of fighting in a self-defense situation than they ever are going to, be a tournament world champion. Now, if they want to go to pursue that, fantastic. But the problem is, self-defense, I feel, comes first. They learn, because if they quit, at least they have something that they can rely on one day if they have to defend their families.
Right.
You know, so self-defense first, and I think that's what you should be practicing, and then with punches as well, and then I think personally the tournament second. There's a ton of people who are going to disagree with me right now on that, but at least if you quit, you have a way to defend yourself out on the street when things are bad.
Right. And when you think about a school like I belong to, Gracie Baja, which is thought of as more of the sporting side, the first couple of years the students are doing almost 100% self-defense. So I think most schools would agree that self-defense is the base of jiu-jitsu.
And I would like to say something about Gracie Baja. I was the one who was saying, back several years ago, I would just say, yeah, they're the sporty kind of Gracies that didn't do any self-defense, and I was wrong. I mean, I see their curriculum, and they do a lot of self-defense, and I really think that's a fantastic thing. So I'd like to apologize to Gracie Baja for anything I might have said. I like Gracie Baja. I think it's a great organization. We were go-karting a little while ago yesterday, and we were in the go-kart place, and there were about 5 Gracie Baja guys in there, and we were just all talking and having a good time. And I really like to see that they're doing self-defense first. It's really important because people will quit, and they need some self-defense.
Yeah, Gracie Baja schools all over the world, so it's not uncommon to run into some guys that train there.
Yeah, at go-karting places.
Go-karting. So Keith, you live in Idaho,
yes.
Boise, Idaho. Boise is
Idaho.
known for potatoes, but are the potatoes better there than anywhere else?
I wouldn't know about the potatoes so much because I haven't eaten every potato everywhere. The potatoes are great, but I'm going to tell you the lifestyle is really great in Idaho. There are a lot of nice people. Hardly any crime. Everybody's very polite. It's a beautiful place. The cost of living is very inexpensive. Where I live, I get a decent price for my jiu-jitsu. So, and we have bathrooms, and the sun shines, and it's a completely great place. So, people go, Idaho, and I just go, yeah, man, I live in Idaho, and I'm very proud of that. I was living in Las Vegas for a number of years, and I trained down there, and you were alone, but you were never alone in Las Vegas, if you know what I'm saying. You're just, couldn't talk to people. In Idaho, man, it's just great. You just talk to people, and very friendly, and it's just an exciting place. And I don't have to pay a lot of money and have smog and everything like that. And having said that, I love to come to Los Angeles. I mean, I think I like visiting here. It's
Right.
I love the beaches.
Yeah, I mean, Idaho and the Midwest in general is kind of an underrated part of the country.
It depends on the quality of life that you want, and as far as business opportunities go, man, maybe the Midwest isn't as good as some places, but for quality of life, I'm a big outdoorsman. I was camping 38 times last year. Wow. I'm out in the wilderness all the time. That's what a lot of people don't know about me. I like being out in the woods, and it's a lot of fun, and Idaho's perfect for that. Beautiful places to go in Idaho. Hiking, hunting, camping.
Awesome.
Snowshoes, totally a lot of fun. So.
Wow.